Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Westlaw Next and based in Eagan. Through Westlaw Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns, and I am really thrilled that we have a guest who I had to chase down a hallway at one point at a dinner. But U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar, haven't been here for a while, but welcome back.
Well, thank you, Alan. It is wonderful to be back again and to see you, and I really appreciate your focus on some of the suburban issues in Eagan and the surrounding suburbs. Thank you so much for doing this program, and I've just been waiting for it to work out in the schedule, and it did.
The last time you saw me, you screamed and ran down a hallway.
I did not. That's a bit of an exaggeration. But when you started lobbying my husband to get me on, you know, you're very.
I lobbied your father also, and I didn't know where to find your daughter. I would have tried her. But you have just had an incredible win. I mean, they're talking about it all over the country. You won with, I saw figures today, said a little over 68% of the vote. You won by almost 1 million. The New York Times yesterday mentioned you as one of 6 people who are going to move to a national platform, which I think is maybe getting a little bit ahead. But what are your feelings at the moment after what's really been a hard-fought campaign?
Well, you know, this has been a polarizing election nationally and in Minnesota, and I think that my feelings right now is it's behind us. People have to come together. I've run my job and my life in a different way than some people do in politics. I've really looked for that common ground, tried to treat people that I don't always agree with dignity and civility and respect, and I think we need more of that on the national stage. When you look at what we're dealing with this fiscal cliff and with bringing our debt down in a balanced way, moving the economy forward, we simply can't afford to stand in the opposite corners of the boxing ring and swing punches. That's just not going to work. And the American people, while the balance of power in Washington didn't change, there were some subtle hints that they want change. A lot of the people that were espousing rigid ideologies went down. They didn't win. Who won were people that were more pragmatic problem solvers, and that's what people want, and that's what we need to do
especially
in the
in the
next few
Senate.
years.
Not
Yes.
as much in the House, but in the Senate, I really think that we moved more to the center.
We did, and I
you
think-
are a bipartisan compromise type person. It's been shown in the bills that you sponsored. So,
Well, yes, nearly 2/3 of my bills have been with Republicans. I've worked with people in Minnesota, but also on the national stage when it comes to prescription drug shortages or some of the issues for our veterans. I worked on a major provision in the health care bill about assuring high-quality, low-cost health care. So there are many things where there can be agreement, and now there's a group of us who've been working on bringing the debt down in a balanced way, got the debt commission set up, pushed to get that done, basically had to go to the brink to get that done, and it does set some framework with a mix of revenues as well as spending cuts to get this done, and that's what we're going to have to work on over the next 6 months.
one of the great shames of the Congress that just ended, in my estimation, was the fact that they failed to pass the Farm Bill. And I mean, it's so important to us, to the people in the Midwest. Do you see that moving forward even before the end of the year?
I actually do. The bill had incredible support in the Senate. We did pass it in the Senate, as you know, with a $23 billion reduction over the last Farm Bill. And I'm sure people in Eagan in these areas are thinking, well, why do I care about the Farm Bill? First of all, fifth biggest industry. It is, and we are the fifth in the country for farming in Minnesota, and it really connects into many of our companies, General Mills, Land O'Lakes, Schwann's, Hormel, you name it. And so we have this interrelationship between farming and our companies that's very important to the metro area. We also have conservation programs there. Minnesota is one of the top states for those. We care about our clean water, clean air. And then finally, it's school lunches, things like that. So I'm very hopeful because it involves such major debt reduction over the last Farm Bill, because we got rid of direct payments to farmers, which were always had some controversy. Because of that reduction, I'm hopeful we're going to be able to get it in as part of an end-of-the-year deal.
And do you think the other side of the aisle got the message? I mean, not only with the president's overwhelming win, but with the very right-wing radical people that went down in flames, and people like yourself who were reelected. I mean, there's a clear message that the country, the population, I will listen to Fox News once in a while. They say the people this, the people that. The fact of the matter is the people spoke at the ballot box. And do you think they got that message?
So far, some good signs. Speaker Boehner on election night said that he agreed we needed to compromise, and he specifically talked about that in his message. You have the president already coming out with some proposals on the fiscal cliff. So I think people do get it. The American people have just had it. The negative ads really hit it home for them. And courage in the next year isn't just going to be standing alone and giving a speech. Courage is going to be whether you're willing to stand next to someone you don't always agree with for the betterment of this country, to move things forward. And I really believe that with some of the losses of people like Alan West, some of the people who were saying, you know, really out there things about rape and things like that, those people lost. And it should be a wake-up call.
As a
it
matter
should
of
be
fact,
a wake-up call.
all 7 of those people who I considered to be anti-woman in the House, all 7 of them went down. And clearly, women spoke in this election.
Women,
minorities spoke.
Yes.
The Spanish Native, well, the Native Americans certainly did speak, but the Spanish voters.
And we're setting an all-time record number of women to the Senate, 20 women to the Senate. We've never had more than 17 at once. So again, those are good signs, and the women in the Senate tend to be problem solvers. We get together for dinner every other month. We work together on legislation. So I think you're going to see a sea change. And you're right, the balance hasn't changed in terms of the House being Republican, President being Democrat, Senate being Democrat, but there's something about the tone that's changed because of certain people who lost, certain people who won. You look at Heidi Heitkamp, North Dakota, very moderate Democrat. Her whole message was, I want to fix things and I want to solve problems. So I'm very hopeful, especially when you look at the Senate the last year, passing the Farm Bill, getting patent reform done, getting the air aviation bill done, getting the transportation bill done. There were a number of things where the Senate quietly did its business, and we need a lot more of that in the next year.
We certainly do. And it's interesting. You serve in Minnesota with a gentleman who, by the name of Al Franken, who's here frequently, was a comedian before he went to the Senate. And I just heard on the radio yesterday people talking about the fact that Al Franken has become such a serious senator that nobody would dare call him a comedian now. They said, but if you want somebody at a dinner who can tell jokes and shake up the crowd, call Amy Klobuchar.
Well, I think part of this is I take my work very seriously, my work for the people of Minnesota, but you can't always take yourself seriously. And believe me, Al is still very funny, but you know, he has a different job now, and we work together well. But I have done some of these dinners and things in Washington, and I have a little different perspective than some of them coming from the Midwest. I always like to tell the story of my first official fancy lunch in Washington, where I went and got a cup of soup and a salad, and I sat down, I'm ready to dive in. It was a buffet table, LBJ's picture above me, all the senators, Patty Murray, the senator from Washington, runs around the table, grabs my arm. She says, Amy, you just took the entire bowl of Thousand Island dressing and you're about to eat it. I thought it was wild rice soup. And I finally said to her, I go, that's what we do in Minnesota. We eat the Thousand Island dressing. So, you know, you have to have some humor about these situations you find yourself in, at the same time knowing that, and I think it helps to make relationships across the aisle if you don't always take yourself seriously, but you very much take your work seriously.
We are approaching what everybody is calling the financial cliff. Do you think we're going to go over that cliff, or do you think something is going to be worked out?
I truly believe we're going to work something out. The country demands that we work something out. We don't want our credit rating to go down again. We have the issue of, number one, the Bush tax cuts, which I believe should be extended, but for people making over $250,000 a year, they can go to the Clinton levels. Why? We reduced our debt by $700 billion in 10 years. That is a major chunk of change.
And that's not really raising taxes.
Well, because they were supposed to end at the end of the year. The second thing is the cuts that we need to make. We need to make another $1 trillion or a little more than that in cuts. I hope we can negotiate how we do that, as opposed to just have them happen automatically. But that is also going to happen at the end of the year, and that's why the Farm Bill, we can throw that in the mix for some reductions. Also, the doctor's reimbursement rate is coming due at the end of the year. There's just a number of things. The debt ceiling and other things will be happening a few months after that.
There's a lot on the plate of Congress.
It demands compromise, but it also demands some serious debt reduction. And the way you do that is a mix of revenue and spending cuts.
The Affordable Care Act, will it survive?
Yes. I've always taken the position that we should not be relitigating that entire act right now. Will there be changes in the future? Of course. This is a beginning and not an end. But to relitigate that entire bill when we have to do something about the debt, when we have to focus on the economy, when in fact the Affordable Care Act reduces the debt because of some of the emphasis that we put in there on efficient, high-quality care, we want to make sure that we give those changes a chance and that we set things up knowing that we'll be pragmatic about changes in the future.
And what about our military? Do we need all the additional monies that the Republicans seem to think that the military needs, but the generals don't think that we need?
Well, I listen to the generals here and have supported them with a number of cuts that save a bunch of money and will save money in the future. The Raptor program, the alternate engine program, some other things with the C-130s and other planes that they have just simply said, we don't need these right now. And there are some members of Congress who say to them, no, you do need them. I don't think we should be doing that. I think we should listen to them and make sure that we are making sure that our troops have the armor they need, the protection they need, that we've got troops getting the benefits that they deserve, but at the same time look for cost savings, bringing our troops home from Iraq, save something like $1 trillion into the next decade, ending the war in Afghanistan, bringing our troops home there is going to make a difference. So there's some major things we can do to save money on that side, but while still keeping our troops not only safe, but also making sure that they get the benefits they deserve. When they signed up, there wasn't a waiting line. When they come home and they need a job or an education or health care, there shouldn't be a waiting line for them.
So much more to talk about. You have such a short time to spend with us. You're on a tight leash. I thank you so much, Senator Amy Klobuchar. Congratulations on your great win, and come back soon, please.
Well, thank you, Alan. It was great to be on again.
Thank you.
Thank you.